All right, everybody. This is Mark Walling from Unlv Athletics. I want to thank everybody for tuning in on their lunch hour. This is our next offering of the 2021 Rebel Caravan. It's the quarterback corner. The idea of this came about because our current head coach, who's with us, of course, Marcus Arroyo, is not only tutored successful quarterbacks in the NFL and in college stops like Oregon, San Jose State, Wyoming, but he was a starting quarterback himself at San Jose State back when they were in the WAC. 1998 to 2002. So we thought we'd connect Coach Arroyo with some Rebel great past and talk about the position a little bit as we look forward to the season at Allegiant Stadium. Speaking of Allegiant, if you haven't bought your season tickets yet, you need to get on it. Just check before this webinar. There's fewer than 75 seats remaining on the home sideline at Allegiant Stadium. There's only 10 tickets left at the low price point of $125. If you're looking for 2 or more tickets, that's just $175 each for all 6 games. So when we're done here, go to unlvtickets.com, get your tickets if you haven't already, because they're going.
Large soda on that offer.
All right, I'm going to introduce today's panelist, and I'm going to get off here and let Kenny run the show. He's all dressed up for today. Joining Coach Arroyo, we're trying to get Sam King. We'll see if Sling and Sam King can get in here technically. Trying to get some audio and video from him. Former UNLV quarterbacks, all of whom rank in the top 10 in UNLV school history still, even Steve Stallworth.
Not me.
If we get Sam on here, he played quarterback from UNLV from 1979 to 81, still ranks 4th in school history. Of course, led that upset in 1981 over number 8 BYU. Kenny was there. He'll tell you all about it. If you know Las Vegas sports, you know Steve Stallworth. Welcome, Steve. He played quarterback at UNLV from 1983 to 86, starting the last 2 years. Still ranks 10th in school history and passing. And Jason Thomas transferred to UNLV from USC to play for John Robinson in 1999. Still ranks 6th in school history. The first great running quarterback in UNLV history. Broke a lot of those records. Was MVP of the 2000 Las Vegas Bowl win over Arkansas, of course. And Kenny Mayne. Played quarterback at UNLV 79 to 81. So he was also at that BYU game we talked about. Everyone knows Kenny from ESPN. But we thank him for making the time today to help us with the Caravan, because the world awaits his final day at ESPN after 27 years on May 24th. So fans watching, if you have a question for anyone on the panel, go to the Q&A section on your Zoom, and we'll get to some questions and some prize winners later. So I am out of here. I'm going to turn it over to Kenny.
Okay, thanks for having me. Notice he didn't list that I'm in the top anything of anything at UNLV. That's fine. I mean, I can accept it. In fact, when I was brought in the Hall of Fame there, but not for athletics, just for other stuff. And then we did a bit with Randall. Like, I was confused. Like, dude, I only played like 6 games, or I was overlooked. That's fine. Uncoachable. You know what I was gonna do to start? And by the way, he mentioned Sam King, who was ahead of me my senior year. Alan Reynolds was 3rd. This guy named Randall Cunningham was 4th. We all knew he was going to be what he was going to be, but he was a freshman. It's too bad Randall couldn't make it as well. He should be in the Hall of Fame. I just want to go down the line. Start with you, Jason. How did you get to UNLV? Tell your story about your journey to be a UNLV quarterback.
For me, it started out being recruited at a very young age by Coach Robinson and Hugh Jackson in Los Angeles. I'm an LA guy, so I grew up in Los Angeles. I was recruited by Coach Rob. We developed a very close relationship throughout the recruiting process. I wanted to be a hometown kid. So my senior year, actually, I broke my ankle, and Coach Rob called me the next day on speakerphone with the whole team there, giving me well wishes. I committed to Coach Robinson that day. And then throughout the recruiting process, he ended up losing his job. So he lost his job and was replaced by Paul Hackett. At that point, Carson Palmer, who was going to be going to Colorado with Rick Neuheisel, changed his recruiting, right? He's like, oh, John Robinson's not there. I'm going to go to USC now. So when he went to SC and played as a true freshman, I was still redshirting from the medical side. And then when spring ball came after our freshman year, all the quarterbacks went to one area, and they sent me over to catch punts. And I knew at that time my time at USC was over. So I went through the process to figure out what I needed to do. Coach Rob then took the job at UNLV, and he basically had a 1-year sabbatical. So I went to UNLV at that time, and I didn't even know at that time, the year before, they were 0-11. Like, I literally committed to Coach Robinson. So I followed him to the end of the earth, which happened to be Las Vegas. I got to Vegas, I redshirted, and then my career started. So that was my journey.
That's a good story. How about you, Steve?
Yeah. Well, Kenny, I grew up in a small town in Arizona. I was one of the few guys that came to UNLV that was not from Southern California. But Arizona State was actually recruiting me my junior year. And as we got into my senior year, Frank Cush got fired, if you remember. All of those assistant coaches came to work for Harvey Hyde. And Sam, you remember some of those guys, Bob Owens and Barry Lamb and Greg Mons, and almost the entire staff from Arizona State came to work for Harvey Hyde. So they got on me, and that was it. My dad loved Vegas, and the rest is history. I got here, Kenny, June 10th, 1982. I was 17 years old. June 11th, I worked the Holmes-Cooney fight at Caesar's Palace. I said, man, this is it. I'm home.
It ain't bad. I was at that fight too. Although what's funny about that, and this was all legal. We don't have to tell the NCAA because we were working as volunteers.
That's right.
But
Absolutely.
it was an amazing experience. I mean, I did Ollie Holmes, Leonard Benitez. So we would get to wear the usher shirts, and there was a little bit of a pecking order. If you were first string or close to first string, second string, you were down in the cool section. So I was done playing football. The fight you're talking about, I'm no longer in the program. I'm finishing I need one credit to graduate in that spring of '82. I'm up in the rafters now. Like
I
I'm
was there with you, brother. I was there with you.
And I got tipped by one guy a handy wipe. He said, "It looks hot out here, son. Have a handy wipe." Thanks a lot. Coach, you were at Oregon. Why did you make the move? What attracted you to Las Vegas?
Well, shoot, I've been doing this a long time. I think it was in a nutshell. I think people, place, and time. I think I met the right people that gave me enough intel to kind of see how we felt like we could put our program and stamp into this thing philosophically. I think that the right people that would generate what you need in college football, that's recruiting, bottom line. Great buildings are hollow without people. And I think that there was an opportunity here to put some really special people together. The place, I hadn't been here much, candidly, but to recruit, and I saw a market that I probably didn't anticipate at the right time. And then place in the country, place with the people, place in the conference, I think it just all timed up. And I think basically January 18th, really how we've kicked this thing off. Of this year is the first time we've really had the access to each other and players the traditional way that we're all accustomed to, teaching, whiteboards on the field, installs correctly, timing. That it's been phenomenal. So we're ecstatic about being here as number one as a family, number two as a coach, and I think that we've got a great thing going. It's only on the uptick.
Nice. Does Sam have the technology yet? If he doesn't, I'll go. But if Sam's on board, not yet. Sam,
He's up.
Say what?
He's up. Sam, I can see him.
I don't see Sam. Sam, where are you? Sam King, you out there?
I can't hear him.
Hit that button on the far left. It looks like
unmute.
Yeah, it has like an arrow, or not an arrow, it has a diagonal line on the far left or somewhere. All right, Sam King on hold. This is his red shirt part of this program, and we'll bring him back to play soon. I'll tell mine briefly. So I wanted to play football in the worst way. I was average at basketball. I was a terrible hitter in baseball. I could always throw things, though, even from a young age. But, my junior, we've had junior high school, right? A lot of people do middle school, high school. So we were 7, 8, 9, then 10, 11, 12. So 9th grade, I'm second string. I'm playing 5th quarter, if anybody knows what that is. So they would play the legal 4 quarters, and then the scrubs go out there after the game. All right, these guys didn't get in. They're going to play this nonsense 10-minute game, 10-yard in. It was horrible. But at least I was doing something. They finally recognized that I could throw, and I was going to start the next game, and I broke my leg in practice that week. So there's my 9th grade year, but I still want to play. So I'm like showing up as a sophomore in high school. I'm 5'8", 135 pounds. And they're looking at me like, what are you even doing here, man? And the kid who was going to play ahead of me, he got hurt. Now I'm the guy they turned to, and I ended up doing okay. The next year I was 6'2", 135 pounds. And then I finally filled out a little bit. So out of high school, I walked on at Washington, and then I walked off. Warren Moon was the starter. I didn't think I was going to touch him. And then you had Tom Flick and Dwayne Akina and a couple others. But I just wanted to play, not at the, I want to play in the freshman team, right? And I just didn't see, they had a scholarship kid, and I was like, I think I can throw better than him, and I ain't going to get a chance. So I called Wenatchee Valley Community College, Coach Sandy Cooprider, Don Coryell coached there way back when. He said, you're still welcome here. Ended up doing pretty well in JC. UNLV recruited me, but then they made the decision to go to this guy, Sam King, at Los Angeles. What's with that? But I still love Tony Knapp, and I love Doug Filan and Coach Abadjian, and it just made sense to go there anyway. I was like, I had other offers, different schools, but I wanted to play there. So I walked on the spring of 79, and then I got a scholarship right away, but I was perennial second string quarterback. I redshirted 79, ruined my leg in 1980 at Oregon at a fracture dislocation, came back and played the next year, but Sam was the starter. And I don't regret any of it. I wish I had played better. Sam was smarter than me. I think I threw harder and longer. Sam was smarter and probably still is. He knew it was smart to give the ball to 4-2 running backs. Let's hand it to Michael Morton and see what happens. Ray Krause, all these people. I'm out there throwing 95 all day long trying to impress everybody. But I don't regret it. I love the relationships I made. I'm still good friends with a lot of the people, and had a great experience in school. Al Patterud, my professor, rest in peace. So I love that I went there. I wish I'd done better, but I'm glad that I made that choice to come to UNLV. Sam, are you up yet? Come on, Sam King. Of anyone, I thought you would figure this out. I just brag you up for being so smart. Come on. Where's Sam King?
I don't see his the microphone on the side that allows him to talk. I can't hear him.
When Sam King joins us, it's going to be dynamite. This is like last night. There was another no-hitter in baseball, Corey Kluber, right, for the Yankees. And we promised we will interview him soon on Sports Center. And we kept saying, it's coming up. And they were telling us, hey, he's almost ready. He comes out, sticks the headphones on, and something went wrong. Like it didn't get patched right. So we can see him. He's talking, but we don't hear anything. And we had to come out and apologize. Sorry, we don't have him. So right now we're in the Corey Kluber, Sam King thing is going on. Hey, I came out here holding a football, not as a prop, but I don't know about you guys, but it's almost like a pacifier to me. Like when I'm on an important phone call, or anytime, or there's a Seahawks game and I'm just, like it feels good to me to hold it. And I remember my dad got me a real NFL ball when I was like 11, and I never that was the ball the rest of my life. I always, junior high, they had those stupid balls, but in college, we got to use an NFL ball. They threw stripes on it, right? But we used real NFL balls. And I wanted to know, Jason, start with you, your relationship with the football. I'm good friends with Jamal Crawford, and he tells me, man, when I was little, I dribbled down the street. Like I always had a ball, and it's such a great thing because once you know how familiar it feels to you, you can do better things on the field with it.
Definitely. So my relationship with the football is amazing. It started for me. My dad was an old school football coach. So I'm a son of a coach. He always thought that you should start closest to the ball and work away from the ball. So I started on the line. I was a lineman, and then I worked to the tight end, and then I worked as a receiver. And so I didn't really play quarterback until I was a freshman in high school. Like they didn't have a quarterback, and my dad was like, okay, you'll play quarterback. But throughout that process though, it became something like you said, where it was like you had to walk around with it. I slept with my football. I know it sounds weird, but my dad got me the old NFL, the Duke, I had that NFL, the Duke football. And I remember playing catch with my dad. And I remember getting to about the 10th grade and I'm in the backyard with my dad, and my dad just looked at me and was like, I'm done. Like, I can't play catch with you anymore. You throw too hard. He's like, go down the street and get one of your buddies because I can't. But the relationship that I have with the football, like you said, is enduring. I have a couple around my house right now, and now I have a 10-year-old son, and we're going through that process of him kind of, developing that love of the game and wanting to talk about it all the time and play catch all the time. So it's something that once it's a part of you, it never goes away. You just look older next to the ball. The ball doesn't get older. You do.
Yeah. Steve?
Yeah. Kenny, it's funny you talk about that, right? I mean, Kenny, I was like you. I think my dad recognized early that I was not going to be the greatest athlete in the world. So, but I wanted to play football my whole life. So you either got to be a quarterback, a kicker, or a punter. So I chose the QB thing. And fortunately, I could always throw the ball. But it's funny, same thing with Jason, throwing the ball with my dad in the living room every day, every night. Laying in bed, I mean, my ceiling in my bedroom had ball marks, right? You're trying to throw that perfect spiral. And I tried to do some math one time about how many footballs I've thrown in my life, because then my son became a quarterback, and playing catch with him all through high school and college and Pop Warner. I mean, it's been crazy. But Yeah, just always had a ball in my hand, man, always.
Before we go to coach, I want to follow up. You just mentioned your son as a parent, right? Like it's always the thing. I wish I knew then what I know now, and you know now what you can tell him, or vice versa, right? Like, are you able to give him that good stuff that my dad couldn't give me? He wasn't a football player. I just was out there on my own kind of.
Yeah, but of course they don't listen to their dad, right, Kenny? But no, I was fortunate. My son actually did listen to his dad, and he was a much better player, way better player than I ever was. But that was more stressful than me ever playing, watching him play. And he played college football and had a great career, and so proud of him. And then growing up, one of my mentors and idols all through college, I worked for him for several years, is right behind me, Kenny, David Hum. And David Hum and I used to just throw every day in the office. I mean, literally for 5 years straight every day. So it still goes on to this day. We still got the ball in the office here. We're talking about.
Coach, same question. Like it's almost like it's a little esoteric, but every quarterback and sure receivers, but you have a certain relation. This ball means more than right to other people. It's just football, but there's something like spiritual about it almost.
Yeah, I mean, I'm no different than you guys. I think I grew up in a town about 1,000 people up in the sticks, and there wasn't much else to do but find balls and rocks and sticks. So you grew up throwing anything. You know, I could throw a pine cone through a rabbit hole if I had to, and you just end up with balls. So you end up with tennis ball. We had baseball. We had any ball we could do, anything we could do outside, we were doing it. That's just how I was brought up. It didn't matter what it was. I remember going on mom's softball games as a kid because she wouldn't afford a babysitter. I'd go out to some women's softball, adults game, and I'd be out playing with whatever I could do. Throw a softball, throw a football. I remember one of the dads he felt bad for us boys playing the big softball, so he always had a football in his bag, and so we'd always had the football, and we didn't play Pop Warner at that time just because I was kind of a smaller kid. I was probably, the winded pickup right now in Vegas, and at that time I'd gone away, so we threw more baseballs and rocks But now there's balls everywhere in our house. There's one in my office. There's one, he keeps one in the car. There's one in almost every room. They'll walk around with them. I mean, and the other thing, I think that there's a couple of things that stick out when you talk about balls and relationships. There's two things. Number one, nowadays, I try to find the kids who have that same relationship we had with the ball, but it's different. You don't find that same relationship sometimes. It's not the same kid out at the park with a couple of balls who's out there shooting on the chain link like Jason was out there at Dominguez or something, and had a football and he was ready to do either one and kick your ass. Nowadays, they don't got that ball in his pocket. You got to go, you got to. And then the second piece, the kids nowadays, so you try to find the guy, you're trying to recruit the guy who's got that relationship with a ball, albeit whatever it may be, because you can tell he's a junkie, right? The second piece too is when you got a relationship with a ball like the way quarterbacks have, and then you put another guy in the room relationship with the ball, how fast a game picks up, or you're throwing in the house where you shouldn't be throwing, or you're in a hotel, or you're in a parking lot,
100%.
And you're at a campsite and you're playing catch. I mean, it's
the best thing is like a good hotel, and you stack up like 7 pillows, and I'm throwing it across. Hopefully it's a suite when you're lucky enough to upgrade. But I got another one in this neighborhood. The way you learned how to play better and smart more than just the skill of throwing, right, Jason? Like I'll give you an example. When I had a high school coach, good coach, but I went to Joe Namath football camp my senior year, the summer before my senior year. My father sent me there. He worked for the airline, so I flew for $3, right? Across the country. I think I learned more in 1 week than I had in my whole life. Then I improved upon that at JC, and then I think I learned more in 1 day under Tony Knapp than I had my whole. Like you just take these little steps and you listen to people. You got to listen, and a lot of guys aren't willing to listen. And those who can open their ears, man, it's just amazing how much knowledge and how much better it improves you in a quick time.
Definitely. I think that's why coaching is so important, because it's not just about how the person receives the information, but I think it's the responsibility of the coach to find out, how to give each individual player the type of information that they need to be as successful as possible on an individual basis. You might have 4 guys in a room, they all learn differently. So it's important not just for the player, but for the coach to be able to know how to communicate to the individuals and how they learn best. And for me, it was funny that I learned the most I did as a quarterback actually when I was done at UNLV. When I got to work with Coach Whitsitt, I spent a year with him just preparing and kind of reinventing myself as a thrower of the football. but just also being able to unlock the way that you see the game. Not just schematically, but just the way that you see the game and how everything kind of works together. Those are things that if you're around the right person, they can unlock that for you, and it can just open up a whole different experience for you. So it's very important, I think, for young athletes, young quarterbacks, to make sure they get around somebody who knows the game and then knows how to disseminate the information in a way that they can understand it.
Steve?
Kenny, it's funny that you even bringing that up. I remember in high school for us, we didn't read any defenses. It was first, second, and third. Hey, if he's not open, look for him. If he's not open, go to him, right? I mean, that's how we did it in high school. And when I got to UNLV, of course, Jason just mentioned my lifelong coach, my son's coach, Jason's coach, Coach Whitsitt, and really got you thinking deep about defenses and deep on how you played. And he's a psychology guy, become a part of the ball and connect yourself to the center of the universe. And, it was all deep stuff. And he was amazing, man. So I learned more in the first week at UNLV than I learned my whole life. But what I always thought was, I always got a kick out of my son when he was 5 or 6 years old. These kids would play Madden, right, Kenny? And he used to just kill me. He'd torch me, and I couldn't figure it out. And I said, dude, how do you know what you're doing? He goes, well, Dad, you keep playing a cover 2, so I'm sending my Z up the side. I'm sending my tight end up the middle. I said, dude, you're 6 years old. How do you know this? And he knew it from Madden, man. So these kids now, I don't know, Marcus, if it's true or not, but I mean, they've learned at a young age, man, just by playing these video games and, everything else. These kids are so much smarter and way ahead of where we were.
Yeah, Coach, I'm kind of with him. High school was just, we had plays, and I hope that guy's open and he might run deep, but quickly JC got better, and UNLV obviously much better as far as, your intelligence in the game. Are kids, in your opinion, coming to you already with that kind of base knowledge that maybe in my era they didn't have?
Yeah, I think it probably started as close to, and not to minimize your guys' 35 years age, but me and Jason's era, I think, is when it started. Probably is that spread element and the multimedia and the 7-on-7s.
7-on-7.
I think that's changed, and we're talking about quarterback play specifically. It changed a lot of people, but specifically at the quarterback position, because they got the education, the reliability on quarterbacks to be athletes a little bit more, also expanded the game to more guys, the tempo variations, guys. I mean, the coverage identification, it was more complex, but guys, there's a lot of things that went in to now our generation got, and I think it was more just because it got exposed to so much more, whether it be the media. I mean, the other thing is too, now you can watch, I have 3 TVs in here. I can watch 5 different games at a time. I can watch a whole bunch of stuff at a time, when in fact, in Colfax in 1995 or 1989, when I'm 9, the 3 channels I had, I was watching the Raiders or Niners. And outside of that, if they weren't playing, I wasn't watching football. It wasn't, I couldn't get it, and now you're exposed to it. So I think that's a big thing that we do, that we look at recruiting wise, specifically at quarterbacks now too, is their education, who they've been around. I was fortunate to grow up in, 30 miles north of Rockland, and I got to catch, balls off my face for about 8 years as a kid with Bill Walsh and those guys. And I'm a fly on a wall listening to him talk to Joe and Steve, and listen to the guys coach the offensive line, and watch Tom Brown. I'm watching football just because it's osmosis. Yeah. And to hear some of that, really, I think is a perfect example. I didn't know then that would have an effect, but I know when I moved forward, and I now turn on an old VHS of Bill talking in Sierra College in the middle of a thing about, curl flat combination. I'm like, oh, I remember that. I was actually, catching balls off my face that day in the back of the portable. And it's funny that we're talking now, we're doing it. So I think just being around it, and with this new generation, you absolutely see that. That 7-on-7 thing for quarterbacks is changing everything.
Yeah. Just in case the technology doesn't work, I'm going to take a short time to praise Sam King. By the way, I should have mentioned Larry Gentry was the starter, splitting time with Sam in 79 when I redshirted. And then Larry was mostly the starter, or he was the starter in 1980 as well. Larry Gentry, free shout out. Sam, if those of you who don't know who Sam King is, he led the nation in passing yards in 1981. He went to the Japan Bowl, I believe. Because of him, I got a tryout with Seattle. He turned it down. He was going to do something else. Coach Knapp said to the Seahawks, hey, if you like Sam, you might like the guy who played behind him. I go up there to try out. Guess who's in the building? They just, hey, go out there and run routes, right? That's how it works. They don't have an appointment. Steve Largent happened to be in the building, to my good fortune. and I'm throwing routes in Kirkland to Steve Largent. He's catching balls off his feet. So I ended up signing a contract with Seattle, but I failed the physical on the first day of camp for my ruined ankle. And they gave me $10 in meal money for the airport, 4 1s and 4 quarters. I'm not making that up. But, it was a thrill just being out there for a few weeks in Kirkland, throwing against Kenny easily and, being out. I was hoping to hang on long enough. Maybe I get cut and USFL or CFL or instead I got into TV a couple years later, and here we are now. I was going to ask, start with Jason again. We didn't break up Larry Gentry. He could play the ball too. There were tons of good quarterbacks. Year after year. Janae Wallace, mentioned him. Who else? Who am I leaving out?
David White, another kid from the Northwest.
Yep.
Steve White
out of Walla Walla region, I believe.
Right.
So on Sam, you touched on it earlier. We beat BYU, or I didn't play. I charted the whole game, and Sam threw like 500 yards. I'm not kidding. He's probably like 38 of 55, or some gaudy numbers, right? Jim McMahon's their starter, right? We're at Provo. He's hurt. On comes this kid named Steve Young. He's the quarterback, right? They had that's a talented one too, there, right? And a crazy game, back and forth. We have the ball. I forget how much time it was. I feel like it was under a minute or a minute and change. I'm off memory. Jimmy Sandusky, who would go on to win Grey Cups in Canada, had a shot with the Seahawks for a minute. He's coaching the alumni Native Americans up in Northern Washington right now. B8 football, good friend. And he runs the most killer post corner you've ever seen. Like he cheated in. The guy thinks he's running the post. Sam puts it out there perfect. And we shocked BYU. It's 45-41. I mean, that might be the biggest win in French or in school history, or one of them for sure. But going back to Jason, there was something like when I played a lot in JC. I mean, it's just JC still, but there's still good quality players out there. I didn't get the same chance at UNLV. Only the appearances I made. There were sometimes I felt a good rhythm, but more often I'm either we're getting killed or I'm trying to impress and do all the garbage I was doing. How do you get into a rhythm psychologically so that it feels like practice when there isn't the same pressure? You know what I mean? There's a real difference between throwing in practice and taking that and making that happen and slowing the game down, as they say.
So for me, it stemmed from just the familiarity with my receivers, the repetition, the work. It was like what you do before the game, what you do in the off season, all the time that you put into it always gave me that peace of mind. So it's like the preparation took care of the anxiety. So whenever I was on, it was like it was a direct correlation to the week, the work throughout the week, or even the work throughout the off season. So in the times where we play really well, I prepare really well. The times when I didn't play well, if I could be totally honest, I would look back and say, well, you know what? I didn't prepare as well as I could. Now, there's always exterior circumstances, injuries, or, maybe your teammates, because, as a quarterback, you rely a lot on all the other parts of the team as well. So some of those things, but, we have the most impact on the game. The quarterback single-handedly has the most impact on the game. So when I was on and when I was prepared, when I was locked in mentally, I would go out and I would be able to perform at my highest level. Now, that wasn't always the best level, but it was my highest level. So I think just preparation and being able to have that repetition with your teammates, for me, always reduce the anxiety, increase the confidence, and allow me to go out and just play free.
Mm-hmm. Steve?
Yeah, Kenny, it's funny. Coach Whitsitt, again, I keep referring to him. He always had a line that I hated. He goes, "You are not responsible for your performance. You're responsible for your preparation."
That's a good line.
And it kind of goes with what Jason was talking about. So I agree with him on that. But Kenny, the scouting report on me was real simple, man, to get in the groove. If you scouted my games, I was check down Charlie the first 5 passes. My coach used to go, "Dude, you got to look downfield first." I mean, I'm checking to the back early because I want to start out. If I can go 1 for 1, 2 for 2, 3 for 3, okay, now I can take a shot. Now I'm 3 for 4, 3 for 5. So for me, it was getting into that check down Charlie routine. And we only threw it, Coach. You remember, we threw it when it's 3rd and long. Kenny, you guys had Tony Knapp, a little different style of offense. For us, we threw it when it was 3rd and long. And now, of course, Marcus, you guys are throwing it every down. These guys, it's a whole another style of play. But that was for me, Kenny, just to get in that rhythm. I was going to check down early, try to get my reps, completions, and then now I'm rolling. And by the way, I always had a receiver or two that I had to get it too early too, so they didn't go in the tank. So I was always conscientious of that too. I had a couple guys, if they don't get a pass in the first half, they've checked out, man. I'm gonna see them the rest of the game, you know.
Right.
Coach?
Yeah, I mean, I think that all you guys, I'm going to kind of piggyback off all that stuff. I think that the preparation is the thing that probably is the thing now. I go to all the evaluation process now, kind of the plans you put forward now. I know as a player, you know, those things were, unfortunately, they weren't really ingrained in you. Like Jason said, sometimes you fall back, but you fall to your habits, man. And I think at quarterbacks, it's the most pressing one. You fall to your foundation. You don't rise to the occasion, right? It's the old Navy SEAL deal. You don't rise to the occasion, you sink your preparation. That's the reality of it when it gets in a firefight. And so I think what you try to build, and you talk about this a lot when you're either in the NFL draft room, you're asking about a quarterback and how does he know how to put himself in that situation where you know that's going to happen as a quarterback. You know you're going to be at a 2-minute drive. Games come down to those 2 minutes, right? So it's how you get that spot. So I think we do the same thing here. I was raised the right way in the quarterback preparation by my mentors. And I think you got to prepare the guys the right way. You got to have a certain set of standards and habits. And what I mean by that, like our practices are way more intense than a game. And we measure that. Like you can measure it. You can measure it, whether it be, let's use one example of the GPS system we use. We make sure we check how our guys' heart rates and how they're doing in practice. And then we compare them to what a game was like. And you're like, wow, okay, shit. We're in a situation now where our guys are flowing in practice, but it's not even comparable to a game. So I think the standards of habits and the way you practice are big. If you hold the quarterback's feet to a fire in practice, games will still come to play, because when guys took it easy on us, or you take it easy on certain guys, and you get crunch time and you see guys really angst up, it's easy lack of preparation or personality. And you got to figure those two things out. I think you got to get guys to compete just like a game in a situation. Find guys that love that, guys like us that want to win every throw. You want to win every throw in practice. You want every game. Measure consistency in a guy. Measure consistency in myself. Am I a pure passer in 7-on-7, but I'm not a pure passer in a team drill with a rush? Well, then you need the game. Like you go team pass. You don't. For me as a quarterback now, 7-on-7 is not what I want my guy in. It's team pass. I want 5 guys in my lap. I want some stuff around me like a game. And I think.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just think those things, getting guys uncomfortable, getting quarterbacks in unscripted situations and situational football, and I think really is where you embody how you found out when you look back, how come I played the best in that game? Well, all those things were pretty lined up, and I got put in those situations, you know.
And you see that sometimes even in throwing against air. Even I'll see it in the NFL where they'll have guys in the backfield with the pads, making the guys move around, make them replicate things that are going to happen in the game. I think we all probably agree we're also football nerdy. Like I'll be up at the high school going to run. I run sprints and walk the corners with my ruined ankle, but I have this brace I'm going to tell you about. And I'll see these kids out there playing, and I want to walk out there like, dude, you have to open at 6 o'clock. You can't get in shotgun and take one step. That's not real life. You have to still take a drop back, get away from the line. It's not going to work if you stand around and get it from 3 yards. No, that's not real football. I want to know, I think this is interesting to go way back when maybe you doubted yourself a little bit, or you weren't sure you're going to be what you were going to end up being. I want to know who in your life, I think you're going to point to your father maybe, and certainly me, who kind of like instilled that confidence. I'll tell you mine first. My dad, for sure. He was a track runner in high school. He went to same high school as Jimi Hendrix, Garfield High School in Seattle, Washington, and decent athlete, but not a football player. I outthrew him pretty early. By the time I'm 11, I need another guy, right? But he always told me to believe in myself, right? And there was this guy named Ernie Mihawk. He was our baseball coach, and he was the father of Lance Mihawk, my tight end in junior high. And I wasn't playing much, right? I told you I broke my leg, and I was the backup to this other kid. The other guy was a great athlete, but he wasn't a quarterback. He's probably driving a Camaro to junior high or something at the time. He looked like a real man. I'm this little scrawny 5'8" guy, but I could throw circles around him. But every practice, Ernie Mihawk would say, keep it going, kid. Hang in there. Golden arm. He'd say stuff to make, all right, this one guy thinks I'm all right. So down the line, who kind of gave you that little momentum?
For me, man, I was just saying my dad, man. I mean, I know it's cliche, but my dad was a coach, and I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't the best athlete growing up. I was pretty uncoordinated because I was a big kid. I grew very young, so I was really tall. I had Oscar Slaughter on my knees, but I was always aggressive. I was always willing to, mix it up. And so my dad always felt like, I can channel that aggression in the right direction, and then eventually he'll figure it out. So we spent a lot of time in the front yard. He was a coach, so I was always a guinea pig. So when he had the old plyometric book and we go through and we do, okay, these are bounding, and this is single leg, and this is karaoke, and I would do all this stuff. And then we would go out and he'd say, okay, Jason, get out here and show the team what karaoke is, or show them what this bounding drill is. And so those kind of things instill confidence. But again, it goes back to like, he was working with me, right? So it was the time on task, in addition to the verbal kind of affirmation that would always, and it wasn't always positive. Sometimes it was like, like, you're sucking right now, but I'm still here with you to tell you that, and we'll get better, we'll get better tomorrow, but let's stay in the fight. And so, yeah, my dad was just someone, and then also my brother as well, being an example. My brother was 11 years older than me. I don't know if Coach Arroyo knows this, but my brother went to San Jose State as well, played defensive back for Herm Edwards when they won the Cal Bowl back in 1990, 91. So I grew up going to San Jose State football games, being on the sideline, seeing those athletes perform. So it made my goals a reality. Like, I can see it. I knew what a college football practice was like because I was at one. I knew what a game was like. And so those experiences helped give me the confidence that I could one day end up being a college football player.
Kenny, for me, I remember the night like it was yesterday, man, last night. It was my second game, my sophomore year in high school. And I went to Yuma High School. We were the Criminals, Kenny, the greatest high school nickname in the history of high school. And the first game my sophomore year, if you were the coach would give you, I got the criminal of the week, the crim of the week. So I got to wear a button around school all week, and I got free lunch. That was like what you got when you were the player of the week. My second game, I threw 4 interceptions, 2 got returned for a touchdown. It was the worst day of my life. I get back to my locker, and someone had put on paper the Wildcat of the week, which was the team we had played. And that was one of my own teammates. And I bawled like a baby when I got home, and I wanted to quit. I never wanted to play football again the rest of my life. And it was my dad. My dad said, listen, he quoted some statistic that I'm sure wasn't true. You're one of only 0.05% of high school quarterbacks in the world. And the pleasure that you're getting to do this. And anyway, it was my dad that kept me going for sure, always. And but that was the one turning point in my life where I was ready to hang it up. I was the Wildcat of the week. I was the MVP for the other team, not my own. Glad I stuck it out.
How about you, Coach?
Well, I had a broken home early, so Pops was around. He's a military guy, and Mom was she was the rock. She was an athlete. She's first generation County Cork, Ireland, so she's pretty tough, but she was an athlete. She started that early. And then I mentioned the small town. I think when you got a broken home, you're in a small town, you end up being raised by the village. And I think that I had some really small town coaches that did it the right way. They were tough. They saw how competitive I was. I think I probably watched a lot. I listened a lot because I think it's what you do inherently when you kind of don't have all the surroundings at home. And so I was fortunate to be around some really good coaches and teachers and supporters that talked to you the right way. And I think that helped us. Helped us where I was from, definitely helped me. I heard people the right way and have a lot of people push me in the right way and learn me, because I think you're also very similar to the guys we deal with now. I think that the connectedness that those people had to do, albeit I wasn't their child, was probably the way they communicated probably helped me the most, because it's easy for you not to trust anybody when they're not underneath your roof. And so I think that's probably the piece that helped me was the support of the village, and Mom being pretty steady and tough as nails.
Yeah, it's for sure having the support, whether it's a singular person or, like you say, a village, is beneficial. Also, I just quoted this. I wrote an article in the LA Times the other day about my departure at ESPN, and I quoted Nick Zito, the racehorse trainer, and I'll never forget it. It's probably my favorite quote I've ever heard from anyone. And it was about taking risks and don't fear failure, right? You go out and stick yourself out there, and okay, it doesn't work, get back and try it again. and he had finished second in the Belmont like 9 times, and they were kind of grilling him like, man, it's got to be tough. And he's like, well, second's kind of good, right? It's not. I'd rather be first, but it's better than third. And he kind of paused and he goes, you know what? You can't even lose if you don't enter. That's like what a great philosophy to live by. And I kind of do that in my business work for sure. I'm pitching ideas all the time and I get a lot of no's, but when you finally get that yes, it's a good thing. I was supposed to look at I was trying to put my phone to the side and not interfere with what we're doing. Then I just remembered, actually, I was supposed to, for this key thing, our first winner of an authentic UNLV retro jersey is Ted Stringer. Ted Stringer, you've won a UNLV retro jersey. The marketing office will get in touch with you. Kenny, check your phone. That's from Mark. Viewer question, John Barnes to coach. Update your current quarterback situation, please. He's being coy. He doesn't want to talk about the situation. Does he hear me? Coach, hear me?
One more time. Can you guys?
Oh, they asked, can you update what's your quarterback, your team's quarterback situation right now?
Gotcha. Sorry. Yeah, obviously we had for our first ever spring. It was awesome. We had 3 guys in camp, 3 scholarship guys, which is less than what you're accustomed to at the position, unless you're in the NFL. Even then, you probably practice squad guy. But all 3 guys, Doug, Justin, and then Cam Friel, a true freshman that's in early, which is now a new era of football deal, is true freshmen enroll early, different than when we all played, is they get here a semester early, graduate early. So it's a huge thing. They get 15 early practices, 1,000 reps. They get coaching early. Then they get to go into fall camp, different than when we showed up and had to drink through a fire hose. But all 3 guys did a really nice job of coming in and truly getting the first time we've sat down and gone through meetings. And they've all grown up. Doug, we threw right in the fire. Obviously with Doug and Justin, they were here in that little COVID season. For us was awesome because we got to just basically throw guys in the fire and teach install as you're preparing for opponents, which is that's fine. It's the way it is. But that I think that'll prove more advantageous than it will negative in our regard, because you get to see the 19 true freshmen we had, and Doug was one of them. And but they had an awesome offseason. Doug put on a bunch of weight. Doug's now weighing in near 230, 6'6", 230 from Sarah High School in LA, who can run and throw and is really learning about the system. We ask a lot of the guys here in regards to the preparation at this position. We treat it how we've treated other stops I've been and the way that we've done it. And they got to control a lot of stuff. They got to know how to do it the right way from ground level. And that's fronts and coverages and protections. And then we do a good job of manipulating what we can use to their benefit. That's not so much putting square pegs in a round hole. And we'll manipulate their strengths. And, I think all 3 of those guys have the ability to do what Jason probably did the best too, was have a little bit of escape dimension and mobility in the pocket today, which can be advantageous to football, but also have the ability to make all the throws that are prominent in what we've done with our offense over the years. So all did a really nice job. All 3 will be here. We got probably 2 preferred walk-ons coming into camp in fall, which
don't overlook the walk-ons.
No, you never can now. You never can. And guys coming in that had scholarship offers. A couple guys are walking on. They've got money in other places, and they want to come in and get taught in our system with Coach Thomas, who's with the Falcons, and Matt Ryan for years. So we got an exciting thing going on at the quarterback position, and the development has been really good.
Okay. I wonder, this is sort of a philosophical question. Start with Jason. When you look back at your playing, do you fondly remember all your successes, or are you still hung up on some of your failures? Like, I can remember an individual play, a mini like that. 95 stop was our fly stop, and I threw it low. Sandusky, he caught it. It should have been a touchdown, but they said he trapped it. And I remember Larry Gentry the next day said, "Dude, why don't you come right back to it? That should be your next call." And they're going to think he's going deep this time, right? Like, do you think of the individual things like that, or certain games, or are you just, nah, man, I'm all about, I was pretty good?
No, it's all the failures. We're tortured souls, right? So it's like we can have people come up, oh, I remember this and you did that, and it's like, yeah, but I remember the first game we had this huge game against Wisconsin. They came down and we talked about this one play. This is our opening 10 or 15 on the script, and it's like we got this first play. And it's like, coach would don't predetermine what you're going to do. Just let it happen. I remember coming to the line of scrimmage, having the back in the flat and the tight end running the out route. And the flat, he's wide open. And he's like right there. But I wanted to get the ball to the tight end. I had this predetermined thing. First play of the game, interception. Jim Leonard. I can still see him running downhill, right? And that was actually the famous game where the lights went out and we didn't finish that game because the power on the whole side of town was literally out. It was crazy. But yeah, it's those type of plays that I remember that torture me to this day. I don't remember the cheers of the crowd when we won the bowl game. I remember the boos of the crowd when I didn't throw. You know, that Sam Boy boo is something that is seared into my mind. So when people tell me, "Oh, it's great to see you back," I'm wondering, I'm like, were you one of the people? You booed me. Don't lie to me. I know you did. You know, but that's what we deal with as quarterbacks because everyone sees what we do and we carry it. But it's okay. It's part of the deal.
You know what? His regret is going to be that he didn't get the technology to be on the Zoom call. But I wanted to update. Sam was also not just in the Japan Bowl, but also in the Hula Bowl. I mean, he was legit. He and I wish you were here. Coach, whatever the question was. No, wait, Steve. I blew by you. Sorry, Steve.
No, Coach. Hey, listen. I'm like Jason. I can remember every interception I ever threw. I don't remember one touchdown pass. You know, and you know, people always ask me, Steve, what do you miss football? And you know what, Kenny? I miss Saturday nights and I miss hanging out with the fellas. You know, those are the memories I have, man, is just hanging out with the fellas in the locker room. I wish everybody in America could be in a huddle. Just be in a huddle once or twice. Be in a huddle, play football for 1 or 2 years. We would not have all the nonsense that we have in our country right now.
You have to get along.
That's right. You have to get along, you know, and you know, it's been mentioned many times. Bill Curry had the greatest video of all time, right? In that huddle is all of us. It's black, it's white, it's Jewish, it's Mormon, it's rich, it's poor, it's South, North, you know, and those are the memories I have, man, and just hanging out with the fellas and Saturday nights, man. But anyway, I don't know how I got off on a tangent there, Kenny. Sorry about that.
No, it was good.
Back to the question.
The question was, now to coach, as a player, do you like, man, I should have thrown that thing earlier, or I shouldn't have bounced it, or, you know, whatever you did wrong?
Yeah, I'm like you guys. I remember all of it. I remember it vivid, like in Technicolor. I can tell you which hat was on, what time it was, and who was the center, who was the guy, what coverage it was, what was the play call, what happened. I can tell you all that stuff. But I think, you know, I did get lucky. I had a coach that probably spent a lot of time with whoever he spent it with. I don't know if some of those guys in San Francisco or not, but you know, he did a really good job early on in my high school career. And he coaches in my high school. Bringing it up was, he really did a good job of making me understand that you need to have an absence of fear and a short-term memory at pitcher, at shortstop, at quarterback, at point guard. Mm-hmm. That's what I was. And it was, I always had the balls, always at the pinnacle of it. Now, I think there's a piece to that, and we probably all undermine it. I don't minimize it now anymore, but there's something to something gravitates those certain humans to that spot where they can deal with that pressure. And I think part of it has to do with their ability to get over failure. And I think that you learn a lot. Remember, you learned more about that interception, Jason, on that than you probably did one of the touchdowns that beat cover 4 and you threw a post. You're like, oh yeah, that's supposed to happen. But in cover 2, you learned about how a corner cloud can really jump that out. And you're like, well, that's how it happens. I got you. And I think you remember those are vivid things that you remember, but not the great. I was not great. I try hard guy and played hard, but I think the good ones we've been around, the great ones I've coached, and what we try to instill now is you got to have absence of fear, man. You got to have a short-term memory in business and anything you do. If you want to be that elite 1%, man, it's over. It's a wrap. Think about it, store it, boom, we move on. It's next down. And I think that failure is a big deal that humbles us all. And I think reiterate what Steve kind of got, he did get in a tangent a little bit, wasn't far, but the reality of it is those areas humble us, and you get a lot of empathy because you see that later on. And it may not be thrown a pass, but you see someone fail in a job interview nowadays and you're like, bro, it's just one pass. Like, you'll be okay. I promise that's not going to cripple you in your life. And I think that's why you see a lot of quarterbacks and head guys and guys who've been out with the ball in their head, the points, the pitchers, the shorts, who want that to put the pressure on their back. Those guys really lean into people, are like, hey, I promise you that you're going to be fine. Over the long haul, you're going to throw a bunch of really good balls because you're really dialed into that. I mean, Justin Herbert was a perfect example. I mean, that was every day up there with him because he's so smart. And I think that you can overanalyze some stuff. You can really build some walls that are going to inhibit success. And I think us at quarterback, we get lucky to get that operation.
Mm-hmm.
Someone sent in a question here. It's who is it? Dwayne Halderman asking me my favorite Sports Center commercial. I'll tell you my favorite ESPN moment of the 27 years, on no plan whatsoever, just the faith of my producer who believed I would pull it off. Because I said, I got no promises. We might be wasting flight money, hotel money, camera money, like zero setup. I was going to go chase Stevie Wonder to do one line for my story. He's the only, like the athletes, I respect what they do, but they're just people who run faster or shoot better or throw, you know, they're just people, right? But Stevie Wonder's different. And I could deeper go into the whole Stevie thing, but I'm running out of time. I have to take a COVID test for a commercial I'm in. I go to Philadelphia because Stevie's from Saginaw, Michigan, and the All-Star game is going to be in Detroit, Michigan. And I was going to make it the connection. And I'm standing outside his trailer, and they keep waving famous people in, like Will Smith goes in to meet him, and Natalie Portman goes in to meet him. And they looked right at me like, you know, the big smile and come on in. And I was like, how the hell do they know who I am? Like, there's no way they know who I am. And okay, I guess they're talking to me. So I take half a step forward. Don Cheadle blows by me. He was the one they were waving to. He's right behind me, right? So, but I didn't give up, and I stayed in the game, right? Just like do not have no fear of failure, because what do I have to lose? I get a no, so what? I tried. And eventually throughout the day, I kind of keep upgrading. I somehow end up with a lanyard from a Teamster. Now I'm backstage. Now I'm getting close to the action. I get to his guy. I said, hey, I just need Stevie, literally 30 seconds. I just need him one line. It's going to be funny. It's going to be on ESPN. And he says, you stay here after the show. I'll bring him to you. You pitch him. He either says yes or no, right? And so I got Stevie Wonder to say, I can't be at the baseball all-star game. I have a high ankle sprain. Boom, I'm out. I'm done. What more is there to do, right? You said something, man. Somebody said something that triggered a really good thought, and I wish I'll just go to the next question because it's in the neighborhood. Tell me, Jason, what would you now tell your 18-year-old self?
Oh my God, oh man, it's so much.
You can pass and go to Steve if you need the time.
Yeah, no, I got it.
There's no audibles in this.
Yeah, you know, I would just say, stop kicking it so much, man. Like, my kicking game was a little too strong. I enjoyed being JT a little bit too much. So if I could just look back and say, hey man, do what got you here and you'll get to where you want to go, opposed to looking around and smelling the roses. So when I played, I was a very highly recruited guy. I went to SC. But even when I left and came to UNLV, I was still highly recruited in the re-recruiting process. And so I felt really good about it. But when I got to UNLV, I was in that humble stage. You know, I was like, I'm going to work and grind. And then after our first year, we played. And then I had Mel Kiper calling my dad and, you know, sending us like draft sheets. And once that kind of stuff got into my head, it poisoned the work ethic. So what I would say to my former self is, don't focus on that, focus on the work. And I tell my son that all the time. My son, he wants nicknames, you know, he wants to be, you know, the whatever and
TikTok,
the eliminator and and I'm like, dude, don't worry about getting a nickname. Just grind it out and then somebody will give you a nickname.
right?
And so that's what I would tell my younger self. Just work hard, man, and everything else will work itself out.
Kenny, for me, I don't want I hope my son's not listening, but you know, I had way too much fun in college, and I wish I wouldn't have skipped leg day, man, because that weight room and me didn't get along, man. So I wish I'd have been in that weight room a little bit more. But
That's good advice.
that's it, man. Don't skip leg day. Don't skip leg day, Kenny.
I always think like I was gonna go grab it out of my car. So like I told you, I had a bad injury and now I'm old and more arthritis. And I was literally to the point where there was a week in Seattle. I went to the fusion doctor. I went to the ankle replacement doctor. James Andrews told me don't do that. And I went to the amputation doctor, literally 3 appointments in 3 days, whatever. And because I was in pain. I was like, didn't even want to get out of bed. Like it was that kind of pain. But I found this amazing guy. He's a chiro guy in Kirkland, Washington, Nino Privic. He basically saved my life. He got it back to life, right? Then eventually I found this guy in Gig Harbor, Washington, who has this insane brace called an ExoSim. And I put it on, this is a few years ago, and I ran 15 miles an hour on the treadmill on day one, right? And if I had run just in tennis shoes or whatever, it'd blow up. It'd be, limping forever. I cried for about 3 hours, and I tried to talk to Gretchen, my wife, and we started a foundation called runfreely.org, RUNFREELY, runfreely.org. And we just raised, per my announcement about ESPN, I think we raised in the last 11 days enough to buy two new get two new veterans running again. And I hype it every time I get a chance, if I get forum to let people know. So it's not about me. We're just like, I owe them, right? The R&D was because of veterans, right? And I just happened to meet the guy that makes it, and I got to buy one. And it's such a blessing. And now we got this guy, John, who's going to be in a Warrior Game event. He's raising money because he wants to pay it forward because he got his freedom. And it's just a really cool thing. So I'm proud to be associated with that. If you guys want to hit runfreely.org, that would be a good thing. We didn't get to coach. What would you tell your 18-year-old self?
You know, I think being from the small town and not having, I think I had a big chip on my shoulder to try to be maybe someone you're trying to find, you know, you wanted to be ultra competitive and be a super achiever. And I think I ended up very task oriented. I ended up being ultra fast in some of my communication and relationships early. And I probably didn't say thank you enough to the people that put me in a situation most times, especially from a broken home. I'd tell myself more and where I'm like the way I'm raised from and look people in the eye more and say thank you as fast as that things escalated from high school to college to coaching to pros. I just tell myself to slow down. I think I'm saying that now to our guys because I'm talking to myself.
Yeah.
I think it's part of our generation right now too, unfortunately. So I'm really digging in on these guys about having real conversations and it's okay to have some healthy conflict and have a real dialogue about each other and our nation and countries basically put that on our back as well. I think I just tell myself to be a little more, slow down a little bit, say thank you to those people that put you in that situation. Task-oriented things a lot of times put us, our go-getters into hyperdrive, and some people who deserve a thank you in the dust. And I think going back now has been a big piece of what I've tried to do. So,
you know, it's funny. I think me answering that question would almost be the same thing I'd tell my same self right now. And Jerry Rice, how hard he worked out. Look at his tapes. If you guys don't know, he would run these insane hills, and he'd always be like, "I can do one more," right? Like whatever you're doing, you can do one more, or maybe even two more. Maybe the one gets you to two. I just wish I would have been more diligent. And I worked hard, man. I threw and threw. I lifted. I ran. I was football. I always had one in my hand. But could I have looked at film and taken it more seriously? Probably. Could I? Like those little things. Like, why wasn't I a little more diligent? Why didn't I? And so I always say that to kids, like, shoot for the moon, but you got to do, as everybody keeps saying here, do the work that prepares you to shoot for the moon. You can't just do it on a wing and a prayer. You gotta be prepared to put yourself out there. I literally have to go. I have work to do. I appreciate you guys. Good luck, everyone. Thanks for having me. Nice meeting you officially. We'll see you next time. Go Rebels.
Thanks, guys.